Now let's go down to South Florida and welcome in Jason Jackson, who covers the Heat for Sun Sports. Jason, welcome to the program. Zach Gelb here. How you doing?
Zach, great to be on board, man. It's tough to be bad these days down here.
Well, no doubt about it. And also, you do live in South Florida, so you do get the chance to go to Joe's Stone Crab. I definitely love to go there and eat at Joe's every time I'm down there in South Florida. But I do have a recommendation for you when you go to San Antonio. My friend, actually, who grew up with me in New York, his father actually opened a place down there in San Antonio called Drew's. And it's so good, quite frankly, that even Charles Barkley went there in between the games of the Western Conference Finals. So if you're down in San Antonio, make sure you stop by Drew's.
I needed another spot because there aren't many, and everything shuts down at 1:45. And as you know, in Miami, that's when we start the party. So you got to get it in early.
Well, make sure to call Andrew tonight and tell him that Jason Jackson will be there ready to go and eat and drink and all that stuff down at Drew's. But, all right, let's get to this series. It's the perfect matchup the NBA got. You have the Miami Heat. Obviously, they're looking for that three-peat, and Tim Duncan's looking to add another championship to his resume. One big storyline in this series will be the health of Tony Parker. What's the latest on the Spurs point guard?
Well, from what we understand on this end of things, you're prepared as though he's going to go. And you imagine he may be limited, but you're talking to the Heat in practice yesterday, and Coach Spoelstra specifically. Even when he is not in, they're still a very dynamic team. The one thing that we all will know is that we're not going to get the full story until the rock goes in the air. So even during the media session tomorrow, where both teams will be on the floor and in San Antonio, I assume that the current short answers that we get from Coach Popovich may even go even shorter when we dive deeper in on the readiness and availability. But the Heat have been in this position way too many times, and I've seen it too many times with my eyes, that oftentimes, particularly against this Heat team and everything that's in play here, the disdain, the disappointment, Game 6 last year, 7-game series, a team always elevates itself when they're a little gimpy. And the thing that I will keep an eye on is if we're really dealing with an ankle with Parker, because just the way that he was heating the back of his foot and no ice involved, it just struck me as odd for as many ankle injuries as I've seen over 15 seasons of covering the league.
And also the Spurs, we all know they were determined to get back to this spot, and the Parker storyline is going to be a big one. But after the Game 6 of the conference finals, the game that Tony Parker sat out in the second half, Tim Duncan was celebrating, and he did say, we'll do it this time, so they're extremely confident. How did those comments play down in South Florida?
Mostly expected, quite honestly. I mean, it's not the Spurs style. It's not Tim Duncan style. It was not, the spraying of the chest. It was a very matter-of-fact comment that he made to my colleague David Aldridge immediately after winning the Western Conference Finals. And I would hope that they would feel that way. And I think that's where Coach Spoelstra and and Heat co-captain Dwayne Wade were coming from. LeBron and Chris Bosh took a different view of it, noting that that this is what they've been waiting for, and so they do feel confident. They do feel like it was partially luck that was involved when Ray Allen hit that big shot to extend the series to a Game 7. So there's a chip. They're very good, obviously one of the best offensive teams in the league in the sense of their continuity and kind of this. I think they call it the osmosis offense, in the sense that nobody really has to think. Everybody knows where everybody's going to be at every moment. And then the Heat inject their defensive will. And do they even need any motivation from anybody to try to inject their defensive will early in Game 1 to try to keep what would automatically be a team running downhill with energy and effort at home, on top of the disdain for not having last year's championship, which probably will energize the Spurs to start things off in Game 1.
We all have respect for Greg Popovich. We all know he's a great coach, one of the best to ever do it, and he has a consistent core there in San Antonio that never seems to age, and we all know when you give Greg Popovich a second chance to do something, most likely he will succeed. What's one thing from that finals last year that Greg Popovich won't let happen again this time around?
I think he'll have Tim Duncan on the floor in any major rebounding moment. I think that'll be the big thing that he will not repeat. For those of you that didn't or don't recall or didn't notice, when Chris Bosh got that big rebound in Game 6 to get the ball out to Ray Allen for the jump shot for the ages from three. Tim Duncan was sitting on the bench. And, it was offense, defensive switch. But, yeah, he needs your tallest player on the floor to rebound. I think that we will not have that moment happen again. And it'll be unique to see if the Spurs continue to tell LeBron, you know what, you want to take jump shots, you're going to have to make jump shots because we're not giving you anything else. We'll clog the lane, we'll send three guys your way, so you either have to kick it or shoot jump shots. Well, this was the best shooting year of his career from outside for LeBron this year. So I'm wondering if they're going to, try to go down that road again just to see if it'll work again. I just don't think it will like it did in those first four games of the series against the Heat last year.
Jason Jackson joins us on the hotline right now, getting you ready for Game 1 between the Spurs and the Heat, a rematch of last year's final, which will come your way Thursday at 9 p.m. in San Antonio. And you look at the Spurs, it's so remarkable. It looks like they never do age, and they're once again right back in this NBA Finals when last year everyone was saying, hey, that was their last chance, that was their last hurrah, now they're probably done. You look at the Spurs, what makes them so good even at this age? Because it seems like they do never age, and they're always in this spot each and every year.
I think it's acceptance. I think what I mean by that is that there's a certain type of player that has to play for Popovich. Obviously, he recognizes there's something about the foreign-born player that works for his style and his temperament. The moving of the ball, finding the best shot, the patience to do so, the hard-nosed practice and preparation that's necessary. Most European players are used to practicing twice a day. So one long practice, they're cool with that. This is almost a break. And so I think that's why you notice so many international players on the roster. And then the American-born players are very specific and reflect, I think, Popovich and kind of that gruff, military, grinded-out nature that he has due to his background. And so I think what you will always have with them, even as they phase, out Timmy and phased out Ginobili, and the days of Parker will be by himself are probably closer than further away, and then he will have his sunset as well. Is that the pieces that get plugged in over these next 5-6 years will resemble those things. You'll still continue to see international players who understand what it means to work a little bit harder because of the schedule that they have in Europe and other places in the world. And then the hard-nosed player that's willing to do whatever it takes, even if that means not having the basketball all the time, kind of the Kawhi Leonard that will continue to emerge if Coach Pop is the one calling the plays on the floor.
We saw the depth that San Antonio had as that was on display in that Game 6, especially once when Parker was ruled out of that final half, which they went on to win, and now they'll face the Heat. Is depth at all a concern for the Heat as you go up against a pretty deep Spurs roster?
I know, it's kind of a concern from the standpoint of like it's going to be a surprise. They know, as we talked about a little bit earlier, that team is still really efficient when the quote-unquote other guys come in. The way that rotation works out, there's not a whole lot missing. Obviously, Tony Parker's their best player right now. But if he's guilty or can't go, Tim Duncan's still, really, really good. Ginobili, really, really good. Kawhi Leonard, really, really good. So you're not missing a beat when you have all those other pieces, and then you just have the support pieces fill that hole. And those guys don't try to do more. They do exactly what they're asked to do, and very efficiently. And so the Heat are preparing for both, but working from the standpoint that Parker's going to be there and ready to go.
Obviously, when you play the Heat, you can't forget to mention LeBron James. He's the best player on the planet, and they have Leonard and Green. We saw a little bit of what they were able to do last year in the finals going up against LBJ. What is Leonard and Green going to have to do to try to contain LeBron James in this series? I'm sure they're going to have to pray a lot as well.
More. It's not going to be like last year. And, LeBron now playing in the finals against the Spurs for the third time in his career. He's 1-1 now. Remember back in 2007 when the broom came out and off he went. So he is as motivated as anyone else to not have that taste of no champagne again. And so I think those guys have to realize they're going to have to try to defend him in a variety of ways. If they're just going to pack the paint, drop back, and dare him to shoot, that's not going to be positive because he, as I noted earlier, that jump shot is something special right now. And it's gotten better through the playoffs. Obviously, this was, again, another top efficiency season for him. They're going to have to do a little bit of everything. What you really want in the end is to get LeBron off the ball before he even kicks it. So you're trying to play this denial or even gets the ball, which is still tough to do because he's so big, so strong, so fast, that he ends up finding a way to get the ball. But I think that's really the way to try to really start to get to the point where offense has to run through Chalmers or Cole or Wade rather than letting LeBron get the ball at the top of the key and survey everything. Because even if you get him off the ball, he always finds an open guy. So if those guys start knocking down shots, man, if you saw Game 4 and Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, that's what the Spurs want to avoid. And it was amazing, suffocating defense that turned into offense. And then you can't stop it. It doesn't matter what Green or Leonard provide defensively, the heater in transition holds. And so you better make a shot because they're looking to run off misses now. And so, see how they're trying to run off makes too. Just the way that they work. But they're going to try to push. And if they're moving and they're not working half court the majority of the time, that's going to be a problem for San Antonio.
I grew up in New York, so I'm accustomed to bad basketball these days, and also I live now in Philadelphia, and the Sixers aren't that good as well as they're going to pick third in the lottery. So you're so privileged to be able to watch a player like LeBron James each and every night, and every time I do watch LeBron James, I'm impressed from a different angle. You're right, the passing is incredible. He's such an unselfish player, and he always has that will to get it done, and we've seen that in the last 3 years in the finals. Tell me something, though, about LeBron James, since you get to cover him on a daily basis, that most people don't know about the man.
He loves playing basketball. And that may sound simple to you, but there's not a lot of guys who love it at this level. So the best player in the game, it doesn't matter if he's messing around with his sons in the driveway. If it's practice, shoot around, getting extra shots up after practice, regular season game, preseason game, playoff game, conference final game, NBA finals game. His engine revs at the highest level whenever his hand touches orange leather. There's just something about it, and I marvel at it. It'll be regular season game 57 or game 7, and he's got the same motor going. It's unbelievable to be that highly compensated, both on the court and off, but to maintain that pure 9-year-old energy of I can't wait to get to the gym. I have an 11-year-old, and he drives me crazy. Get me to the gym. And it's that same dynamic that radiates from him that is so refreshing. And it really has been the joy of covering him. Because you have your... I grew up in Cleveland, and so, you hear stories, and the kind of the keys to the franchise vibe, and what's that going to mean coming down here? The Heats don't have that type of culture. He has been such a pleasant joy to cover every single day, and I could not have imagined it being this way. I had a chance to cover a lot of superstars in my time, but this one is special from the standpoint he steps up to the microphone every day, good or bad, and loves to be on the court every day. Even practice, I'm like, aren't you tired of this practicing? He maintains, I think, the reality of where he came from in a way that most guys don't, of being the only child of a young single mother scraping together for the majority of his life. And I think that drives him in every aspect of his life. And it's just something that will always be a part of him.
A few more questions with Jason Jackson from Sun Sports, and you obviously have a good relationship with him. I've seen the times that he's video bombed you in those post-game press conferences, but does he ever shed any light of the departure from Cleveland to you, or even that finals up against the Mavericks, and how much pressure there is on him? Because he comes through time in and time out, and I have to imagine those two moments provided a lot of great motivation for him as he now looks to win another championship in Miami, and I think he's staying. I don't see him leaving after this season.
I feel the same way, and it's basically based upon what's the best basketball situation, and I just don't see another team in the league being able to present the same dynamic as teams stand now. Now, there could be some magic that happens starting July 1st, starting on draft night, but we'll see. But to your question, no, we don't cover Cleveland a whole lot. We don't cover the decision a whole lot. The one thing we do talk about when we're in Cleveland is just that first night, that first December night when they were up there the first time he went back. There's just nothing like it. Just nothing like it. They never will be. But it's just amazing. The venom and the disdain, and then him dropping nearly 40 that night for a 20-point win was something else. But no, he doesn't spend a whole lot of time on much, in the sense that once something is done, relish wonderful honors and victories and items off the to-do list in the appropriate fashion. But he just doesn't linger a whole lot with much of anything. He's really a forward, kind of in the moment and forward type of guy, if you know what I'm saying. And so everything's about the next thing with him.
Let's get to Chris Bosh. He plays really well up against the San Antonio Spurs. If I read it right, I think in the 2 times they played this year, he led the Heat in scoring. What makes Bosh such a good, favorable matchup for the Heat when they go up against the Spurs?
He's from Texas. Come on, man. You don't mess with Texas. He grew up in Dallas. He doesn't want to, he never wants to go home. And he's serious about this. And I'm not saying it's a real factor. I'm just telling you because it's fun to hear. That when he goes home, be it Dallas, where he's really from, Houston, or San Antonio, he's serious. He's always got people in the building. People do show up. He's one of the greatest high school basketball players in the history of Texas, and they've had a boatload of really good players. He's one of the top 3 ever, and I think a couple state titles during high school in Dallas, and he just is real focused whenever we go to the state. I know it seems silly and kind of disconnected to actual play, but I think there's something about one's mindset in certain places, and that's been his. I mean, obviously he has to deal, with one of the best players ever in Tim Duncan a lot of the game, and they have other guys that guard him, and there's probably 3 or 4 guys still end up dealing with Bosh, but I think he rises to the occasion. Because Duncan was one of the great young players in the game when he was a high schooler, and they're one and done at Georgia Tech. And so I think there's something about that challenge that fires him. And then we'll just go back to don't mess with Texas.
Before we let Jason Jackson run from Sun Sports, who does a fantastic job covering the Heat, will be in San Antonio for Game 1 coming up on Thursday night. The one thing that I'm really excited about with this series, and I expect a lot of close games down to the wire, is just the amount of clutch players. You just never know on either team who's going to hit the big shot, whether it's Duncan, Ginobili, Parker for the Spurs, or even on the other side for the Heat. Just look how many good players they have in LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and let's not forget about Ray Allen as he had a big shot last year in Game 6. The amount of clutch players here, it's just something really special in this series.
And the neat thing is we don't know what Patty Mills is going to do or Danny Green's going to do or James Jones gets a shot or Rashard Lewis goes off again like he did in the conference finals. There's just so many storylines, like you noted, 1 through 15 on both teams that can end up being a part of it. Or is it a side out of bounds play that Popovich or Spoelstra has to draw up? I think we're going to get another one of these juggernauts, 6 or 7 games, and just another one of those great finals where you don't miss a game.
Now, does home court play a factor into this? Are you all concerned for the Heat if we get into a 7-game series and if that Game 7's on San Antonio's court?
I have to get to that. That's always a concern. The Heat have won the championship both ways, as the top seed and as the underseed. And 2 of the franchise 3 titles, they came in without home court. Listen, you win one on the road, it quickly changes, doesn't it? I mean, it just shifts the mindset of being backed up and maybe losing in 5 or 6 games turns into, oh my goodness, can we win this in 5 or 6 games? If you just get that one on the road in those first 2 games, and now with the 2-2, 1-1-1, it's a whole other 5 and setup. So it is a factor, but not yet. Let's put it that way.
Jason, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much. Enjoy the finals, and we'll talk to you again real soon.